Nice to see you again, Mark, and I'm glad to be here talking to you again, and to everybody who watches your channel and your videos. Today is a big part of the Cherry Blossom Festival. It's the big. Yesterday was the big festival, and today it's a Sunday in the park, and just a stunning, beautiful display of cherry blossoms. You know, I was looking up some of the symbolism behind the cherry trees and the cherry blossoms, and there's some question about what the cherry blossoms really symbolize in Japanese culture, you know, but they to me, you know, with 20,000 American children kidnapped to Japan, I'd like to say that these cherry trees here in the United States and the blossoms symbolize all the American children kidnapped to Japan. And you know, and I see all these blossoms blowing in the wind here, and it's just a beautiful day, and I'm glad to be here. But tomorrow's my daughter's birthday, and Melissa will be 4 years old tomorrow. So we're gonna have a little birthday party out on the front of the Japanese embassy, and have a cake and blow out some candles, and you know, and hopefully the Japanese embassy officials and Japanese government would try to think a little deeper about their role in all these international child abductions. 20,000 American children illegally kidnapped to Japan. 20,000 American children illegally kidnapped to Japan. And the State Department and the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children can't bring one of them home. They've never got one back. And you know, for my daughter, that's entirely unacceptable. And I miss my little girl. She's going to be 4 years old. She's running and talking and playing, and she doesn't speak a word of English, I'm quite sure. And so, you know, it pains me to no end to think those thoughts. And so what I've done is I've been channeling my energy into working with other parents of children kidnapped to Japan and other countries, and educating our congressmen and senators, and who legislate on our behalf. And the interesting thing is that March 11th, the U.S. Congress voted unanimously in a roll call vote, stating that Japan is the single worst country in the world when it comes to international child abductions. There are 20,000 illegally kidnapped American children in Japan, and the Congress has called for Japan to return Melissa and return all of these children and join the societal norms of the rest of this planet. We don't have this kind of problem with other countries on our planet. We have problems with, you know, rogue countries like Syria or maybe Lebanon or Somalia. But you know what? In Syria, Lebanon, and Somalia, we get children back from those countries. The State Department is able to recover illegally kidnapped children from those countries. But they have never been able to recover one child from Japan. And so on this day here in the United States, when we celebrate the relationship between Japan and the United States, there's a huge irony, and it's terribly bittersweet for me. I look at these cherry trees, I think about them being brought here in 1912, and the 90 years, almost 100 years now that these trees have been here, and hundreds of thousands of American people here today, hundreds of thousands coming to celebrate this relationship between these two countries. And I have to ask, what is the relationship between these two countries? You know, what is it about Japan, you know, that they find these elements of family values so unrealistic? Or why would they lack valuing family relationships as much as they do? That they don't see any value in two parents and two parents' input for the one child. You know, there's no debate anymore in social science that children need both parents. A child to develop emotionally and psychologically needs the complete input and love and care and guidance and protection of a mother and a father. And there's just no getting around that anymore, and there's no debate in the social science circles anymore about that. You know, and so when you look at the way the Japanese government responds to this problem, you know, House Resolution 125 passed on March 11th, you know, made it very clear that every single member of Congress deplores the Japanese response to this situation. And what is the Japanese response? They hire a bunch of big, expensive American lobbyists to run around on Capitol Hill and try and squash this resolution, to try and remove the language from the resolution, to try and silence and cover up and hide this problem. But they're not able to hide it much now. It's in the congressional record for history now, and it will stay there forever. And as we look back on the Japanese history, there are issues with American prisoners of war and all prisoners of war held in Japan. Just recently there was a huge bunch of documents found in the Ministry of Health basement in Japan that the Japanese government is trying to hide those. You know, you look at all of the women's rights and women's issues that are just completely trampled in Japan, children's issues, child porn. And so you have to wonder what kind of values the Japanese government has, and what it is about our government that they see in the Japanese government that they consider them such a big ally. You know, it's there's a lot of differences, and there's a lot of difference in our culture and a lot of difference in our societies, and you know, in my opinion, it seems to me that, you know, while these cherry trees have been planted here over the last 100 years and grown, and Americans have come to mark this day for the relationship between Japan and the United States, the Japanese government has really failed to grow to fill the shoes that have grown up here and the rest of the world. While Japan may be the second largest economy in the world, you know, they haven't evolved socially or culturally to fill that same set of shoes. And you know, so I was listening to the words of Congressman Walter Jones, and I really just, I think he summed it up really, really well when he said, you know, this is not what the world should be about. The world should be about bringing families together, and God should intervene to bring our families back together. And if the Japanese government is just behind the times and socially unevolved, culturally unevolved, you know, we as the world leader need to take the reins and really help guide them and steer them towards this evolution and societal norm that the rest of the world has clearly come to, and Japan clearly defiantly refuses to participate in. And why, I'm not sure. They've dug their heels in so deep that they just can't admit. They would rather commit suicide than apologize and admit they're wrong, you know. And it's really not a big deal. I think that if they just were to accept that previously established jurisdictions and custody for children, and you know, I'm really concerned about my daughter's case, but there are 20,000 children being held in forced separation from their American parents in Japan, and 99.9% of them never get to see their American parents again until they grow up. So and then when you think about the child development, the psychological and emotional development of these children, you know, I compare it, you know, these cherry trees are a perfect analogy. Once again, it's very bittersweet for me to be here, you know. You can take a seed from one of these cherry trees. Some of them look like they're 30, 40 feet high, and they're obviously 100 years old, brought here in 1912. You can take a seed from one of these trees and plant it in a little pot about this deep, and give it threadbare soil, and feed it all the nutrients, and it will grow a beautiful little cherry tree. It'll be a 2-foot tall cherry tree, and it'll look perfect, and to the untrained eye, it will look like a perfect bonsai tree. But to the parents, the two trees that spawn that seed, those trees are 30 feet high. That is a stunted, dwarfed, miniature version of its parents.